Hello, welcome guys. Welcome to our live tonight. So I'm actually live on TikTok and YouTube right now. This is my first time doing YouTube live, so we'll see how that goes. But again, welcome everyone to a live tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about the asylum process, Bill C-12, some important things that we should go over, answering your questions, because we're reaching February. Senate's going to come back into um, into like they're coming back from their vacation very very soon into the house. And yeah, we're getting close with Bill C-12, guys. So I want to cover some really important matters, answer some of your questions, because if you guys are thinking and you believe that a refugee claim in Canada is necessary for your safety, you really should be thinking about filing it very, very soon. So we're getting there soon. So I do apologize, guys. I'm trying to. Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to switch something over. All right. All right. I'm putting this over here because I also want to see my comment section in the YouTube live as well. So, okay. Let's get right into it. When is the Senate supposed to discuss it? They're actually supposed to go back to the House, House. I forgot the term for it. February. I don't know the exact date, but they should be going back in. Could be tomorrow. Could be the 2nd of February, or it could be very. I'm pretty sure it should be this probably very soon. I'm thinking tomorrow. Would make sense, right? They've had a very long vacation. So want to go through some stuff, some things that I went over. I reviewed some of the amendments and stuff that they had made, and Bill C-12 is coming into effect, so we're gonna go through some of those. I'm also going to keep of course, an eye on the questions, guys, and I'll answer them, so it's not a problem. Just a few things, housekeeping rules that I really want you guys to remember. Number one, please remember that this is a live forum. Please maintain your own confidentiality. It's really, really important, guys. Number two, it's really important to remember that anything I say tonight is not meant to be legal advice. So we're going to, just remember anything I discuss tonight is not meant to be that. All right. I did get one other question. Okay. Hi. What is the best way to submit continues of risk on your country after arriving and continue in Canada? Sorry, Yash, I'm not really understanding your question. Can you clarify that one? Is this through addendum reports or personal affidavits? Can I apply for a visitor record if I'm already on implied status with PGW extension to passport expiry? Sorry, that one I'm not really sure. Can I? Okay, so I got one question that's not related to asylum or the Bill C-12, but I'm trying to understand it. Can I apply for a visitor record if I'm already on implied status with the PGWP extension? The status due to passport expiry. That one I'm not sure, Lone Wolf. I'm gonna have to look into that one. So I'm not really sure. Okay, going back to Bill C-12, I'm gonna answer your question, Kegon. I see it and I will get to it, I promise. There are just a few things I wanted to kind of mention. So what I'll do, my format usually with lives are questions, some things I want to cover, questions again. Okay, so I'll be back checking them. If you guys see that I like I don't answer your question after a little bit of time, just repost it and then I'll answer it. So, few things. So, key changes that Bill C-12 is announcing. One of the main ones is the minister must appoint a representative for people under 18 or those unable to understand the proceedings. I think this is a very important element, guys, especially if there are vulnerable people out there who are unable to comprehend the proceedings, right? The severity of it. I think what IRCC is really worried about is that sometimes people are not really comprehending the what's going on in hearings, especially children and anyone who's in a vulnerable state, perhaps mentally, perhaps sometimes physically. Generally, with asylum claimants, sometimes it is mentally because they've gone through a lot. So they are now really pinpointing that they need representatives to help them through the process. And also that the representatives can access personal information and regulations and define duties, decision making, and payment. I don't personally love that, especially when they get so much access to the personal information, but I can understand it. Personally, I as counsel would not. I don't feel comfortable telling. I mean, there are certain times that you have to, but you gotta keep in mind, like, I personally am not comfortable with it, but I understand it, right? Vulnerable people or children who are especially very young need someone to assist them with that. I'm gonna go ask here. Okay. What happens to cases that they already referred to IRB but in processing and they applied after 1 year in? So it it's not meant for it to anything to really happen specifically. If you're already in the process and you're in queue. However, keep in mind they're making stricter rules about removal process. So if at any point they indicate that your case has been withdrawn, abandoned, or anything like that, the bill C-12 is essentially making it in a way that you can be removed faster. So that essence will be effective of you, right? And I believe that they've made it in a way. Hold on, I'm gonna actually bring it up. Removal orders can now come into force based on appeal rights and deadlines and claim ineligibility, rejection, abandonment, or withdrawal. You generally have a specific countdown, 7 to 15 days in most cases. And yeah, so that is one of the main things that could affect you, even though you've already been referred to the IRB. All right, I'm going to answer one more question. I'm going to go through some other important elements. May take longer than showing in processing time in IRCC website. Sorry, Elias, I'm not understanding your question. Can you reiterate it? Hi, B. Thanks for posting that video that cleared up that volunteering post. Oh, yeah, no problem. That okay, so that one, and I'm actually going to talk about it a little bit quickly. No problem. Applewhite. Sorry, I think that's your last name, but Jay. I'm going to say Jay. So I made a post today talking about an immigration influencer, guys, who's very prominent, I guess, within the I guess African community. So individuals who are from the African continent. And she, in the nicest way possible that I can say this, was talking utter nonsense. Now some things, and I will say this, were true, but that still does not give her the right or the authority to be talking about refugee or asylum process. And this is where I get very, very worried about my followers or other asylum claimants, guys, is because refugee claim, and I've said this so many times, I feel like I'm just, repeating myself, but because it has such severe consequences, it's not like other applications, right? Um, your deportation order comes into effect right away. If you're listening to someone who does not know what they're talking about, you can be deported back to that country of persecution very easily. And if you listen to someone who is not legally authorized to do so and to give you unsolicited advice, it can lead to that. It can. Because, and I'll give you guys an example, and I said it in the video as well, was that this individual was talking about recommendation letters from like employers or volunteering or whatnot. That's not important in a refugee claim, guys. If you want to add it, sure. It's not a determinant factor. Sorry guys, just having someone call me. It's not a determinant factor at all. They're not really going to take that into weight, because this is not about, oh my god, sorry, sorry guys, because this is not like an agency. This is not an agency type of application. Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second because someone was texting me as well. Okay, so yes, going back to the job, the individual was talking about jobs and recommendations and things like that. It's not important because they're focusing on well-founded fear, your credibility, why you cannot return home. Can't you seek safety somewhere else? Like the focus of it is on your well-founded fear, subjective, objective, whatnot. And if you fall under section 96 or 97, right? Or both. Most cases you fall under both. And this individual, what they were talking about work and stuff like that, it's not a determined factor because it's not relevant to section 96 or 97. And you can add it, but it makes no sense to add it. I mean, you can, and I would never, like, it's not going to hurt your case. But you also got to remember, this is not an H&C application. You are not determining your establishment in Canada. They don't care how much people like you at work, like that's to your prerogative. They're What they care is that you are a genuine refugee claimant and you are genuinely scared. You and your family are at risk if you return it, because Canada's obligation is to ensure that individuals who are genuinely afraid do not get returned to the country of persecution. And they have this whole process to ensure that you are a genuine claimant, not someone who's fake. So that video really was just, it's upsetting to see individuals making things like that, because there are obviously people who are listening to this. I saw in several of the comments, I screenshotted them too, that they said, oh, thank you so much for the advice, that's great. But of course there were people who were also, telling her like it doesn't have anything to do with this, that's not true. And then her argument was that, oh, I already made videos about IFA and other elements. You shouldn't even be making those videos. And there's a difference between when someone talks about their own pro, process that they had in Canada about their immigration experience. Totally, even though I have problems with those too, because you're still giving people, as much as you still are giving people advice, or people are listening to it. But it's not like you're telling people, this is what you should be doing. But someone who comes out and says this is what you should be doing is very concerning, guys. And I really, really begging you, don't listen. Don't listen to someone who's not licensed. Don't listen to someone who's not specialized, who don't know what they're talking about, because it can hurt you, and it's serious. It is very, very serious. And IRCC and IRB don't care that you got bad advice from someone. They don't even care if you got an incompetent counsel, to be honest, because at the end of the day, they tell you you're the one who signed off on the documents. You're the one who sent them in, Rarely ever has a federal court actually been like, oh, okay, like this person had an incompetent counsel, or, they got bad advice. So please, guys, be very careful with what you listen to. All right, I went on my spiel, and now I'm going to go back to your questions. May take longer. Okay, that one I wasn't sure about. Okay, how would I update my story to IRB after submitting first story? Is it through affidavits or addendum? There is a process, Yash, on... Sorry, I'm just thinking. On IRB, I think there's a form. There's also some explanation you have to do. Generally, what I like to do for my clients is I also put in like a little submission letter indicating why some things need to be changed. specifically why they were changed, what was the reasoning. Make sure you explain yourself because, again, and I preface this, it's a credibility issue, right? If you have a counsel, yes, please go through them to understand how amendments are to be made. And again, I will preface this is not legal advice, but please ensure you talk to them if you have a counsel. Should we be worried to be affected if I applied before Bill C-12 came out? Um, there are certain things that are worrying. Okay, I don't. I'll say it this way: when it comes to the submission and to yeah, I'm just thinking here. When it comes to submission and being referred to IRB, those elements are not as worrisome because IRB has and IRCC has said that they're not going to be canceling asylum claims applicants without good grounds. But there are certain elements of the Bill C-12 that could affect you. So, for example, if you are determined to be abandoned, your claim is abandoned, the removal process will be a lot faster, right? And it comes into the fact like what your next steps will be. You have to move very fast if they consider you withdrawn. There are also other elements that are also quite sorry, I'm just thinking, reading it here, just trying to make sure I cover everything. There's also elements that make it a little bit concerning. So, for example, if you do not provide all your documentation, it could be considered abandoned. If you do not go and do certain things, you don't meet deadlines, can be abandoned, right? So, stricter policies are being passed that could affect you even if you've applied. I do have a question here on my YouTube live. Give me 1 second. Okay. How does Bill C-12 risk limiting access to asylum for refugees who arrive in Canada through irregular border crossing, and what safeguards exist to prevent wrongful refoulement? Okay. Uh, Great question. So you got to keep in mind the refoulement law is that you cannot be returned to a country where your safety is at risk under that law. This is under the UN convention that we have signed on. However, keep in mind there are exceptions. There's pretty much exceptions to everything, especially for individuals who have criminality, serious criminality. You might not fall under the refoulement. Now, the Bill C-12 limits the refoulement in a sense that we still technically have an obligation, but now not a lot of people are not going to be able to have access to the asylum claim process in Canada. Meaning, if you've been in Canada uh, after June 24th, 2020, and you've been in Canada for more than a year, you are not eligible to refer to Refugee Protection Division. So it limits that non-refoulement, but at the same time, it still exists. But I will say this: um, limitations, right? Bill C-12, not the greatest. If someone came to Canada on a visit, how can he change status? Well, it depends what kind of status you want. At DivRay, do you want like what kind of status are you trying to obtain, right? And if you're eligible for it, then you can do a simple change of status application. Inside Canada application generally has that form for you to change it, send your documentations, and if you're eligible, and hopefully you get approved. My brother came and got approved, and we have the same threats and fear as well, I claimed. Okay, yeah. So in those situations, if someone has similar, and guys, please remember this is not legal advice. If someone has similar grounds and they were approved, does not automatically mean that you will be approved, right? There is no automatic approval. You will be determined on your own if you are to be able to seek safety. But it does present an argument, right? That your brother came to Canada, similar threats, and he was accepted. However, keep in mind current country conditions, right? Like, for example, let's say your brother came in Canada, let's say 5 years ago, and I'm just giving you an example. This is not your situation or whatever it is. They came 5 years ago. There's a group of, I don't know, terrorist group or something like that, targeting people, and he sought safety at the time because they were prominent there in that country and he needed protection. If those country conditions do not exist, for example, a new government came in, that organization is like down and there's no more threats, then that could prevent you from obtaining a refugee claim, right? So you have to remember the threat has to be ongoing and it has to be real at that time. Your past threat, a past threat can be grounds for argument, but it is not determinative of you being able to seek protection here, right? The threat has to be ongoing. It cannot just be in the past. That's not an argument for you to say, well, the threat was back then, but I want to seek asylum now. They're going to be like, okay, but the threat doesn't exist. So why are you asking us for protection, right? But again, and the reason why I say back, like what has happened in the past can help your case is just to show evidence of the threat and what is going on. A lot of the times, guys, and this is where the national document package and like nonprofit organization reports are really helpful to show the country conditions and to provide grounds or evidence on what you're saying. I hope that answered your question, Brittany. Is Bill C-12 gone have exceptions for people that really are in risk, have been here 1+ year? Right now, I don't see any exceptions. Unfortunately not. No. What you will be eligible for possibly could be a pre-removal risk assessment, which is, like I've mentioned before, is an inferior process. Sorry, I'm just looking at my YouTube live here. Okay. Is an inferior process for like seeking safety in Canada. Um, but yeah, it's essentially like an inferior process. And the reason why we say is because there's a lower chance of getting approval, and also CBSA officers are seeking or decision makers. And there is no real, there's no hearings. Like your verbal testimonies might not be considered. Now, keep in mind you can request one, and if deemed required, the officer will place one for you. But the general practice is that there's no hearing. So no oral testimonies. Do you check with IRCC before applying for a client? So what do you mean? Like, what do I check? Like, do I check their eligibility? Of course, yes, always. There's absolutely no way in hell I would ever someone's application without knowing that they're eligible. But keep in mind, even if you're eligible, and this has happened, sometimes people don't even realize that they're not eligible, right? For example, I've seen situations where someone submitted an application, then they realize that they're sorry, I'm just thinking like there was like some sort of case open to them, or like there's part of some sort of organization that's deemed like a terrorist group or something that made them inadmissible, and that could hurt. That would pause their refugee claim. Hi guys, welcome. Do you think Bill C-12 will get passed? Yeah, I do. I really do. It would be a miracle and a half if if it wasn't. But as you guys have seen how fast this bill has been going through, it went through House of Commons like there's like super fast, right? And it kind of seems like it's going through the House of Senate pretty fast, or at least I think it will. And we're anticipating that's going to come into effect in, what did I say? Spring. That was what the article had said. We're anticipating spring, but can come in fact sooner too. So please keep that in mind. But again, I want to do preface. It's still a proposal. It couldn't possibly not be passed. but I don't think the possibilities are high, to be really honest. I think there's a lot of people in the in not in the ministry, in the House of Commons and probably in the Senate that will be for the bill. There's probably going to be amendments made to it. There have been amendments made to it, but likely will be passed. How do I get a study visa? Jim C FX. I can give you a quick lowdown. Okay, so let me just say it this way. If you want to know specifically to your situation how to get a study visa, I recommend you booking a consultation. You can book one with me, you can book with anyone else, but generally you would have to obtain a study permit, apply for a study permit application, and then go through the motions, meet the financial ability, meet the documents, get approval from your institution that's part of DLI. That's just a lowdown because this live is focused on Bill C-12 and refugee claims in Canada. So I will have other lives if you want to follow me and keep an eye out for other lives about study permit process and stuff like that. Uh, may take longer than showing processing in IRCC website. I'm sorry, Elias. I'm not really understanding your question. Is their nationalities considered or known to have high acceptance in East Africa? Actually, I was looking at that. East Africa, I'm not sure. There was a couple of countries that I saw in Africa. Let me actually just bring it up. That's not it. Oh, here it is. Ah, it was open. I was actually looking at it. Overall, in Africa, and this is based on the statistics that we've had from January to September 2025. I'll name you guys some of the higher countries specifically in Africa that have had acceptance. So let me just see. No. And I do apologize, guys. Sometimes I don't know my map too well. I swear I'm not an idiot. I forget what countries are. So if I name one that's not in Africa, I apologize. Um, Ethiopia has quite a big sum of approvals. Where are we? Haiti has a high approval for just that period of time. Where are we? India as well, but that's not Africa. Kenya. Mexico, but that's South America, but just one of the countries that has high acceptances. Nigeria has high acceptances, like higher than the others. I'm not saying super high, but higher than the others. Oh wow, Turkey has a high acceptance. I know, again, not Africa, but that was a surprising one. Uganda has higher than others. Huh. Venezuela's not that high. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so those are just some of the countries that have had acceptances. How long does a refugee hearing an interview take? So which one? Is it the eligibility or is it the actual hearing? Like when you go to the Refugee Protection Division? Because they're different, right? The eligibility hearing is with the CBSA or IRCC officer will determine if you are eligible to be referred to the Immigration Refugee Board, such as specifically Refugee Protection Division. And then there's the hearing in itself that you would have. Why is asylum claims taking so long nowadays? Good question. Mainly because of backlog. I can just tell you right now. Right now, there is a pending of 290. Well, no, okay, sorry, not now. Between January to September 2025, there was 295,819 cases that were pending. So I think backlog has to do the biggest reason why. Oh, actual hearing. Sorry. Oh, Eritrea. No, no, I said Ethiopia. But I can look at it. Eritrea. Sorry, I apologize. I can't pronounce properly. Eritrea. I'm sorry, guys. I swear I'm not stupid. I just don't know how to pronounce things for the life of me. Okay. Oh, not high at all. Acceptance was 86. Referred was 136. But guys, you gotta keep in mind, like, this is just based on between that period, and how many people, like, what the country conditions are at that moment, right? The country conditions change drastically, then that number can go up. Let me see if I can find one from September 2025. From September to December 2025. Maybe if they've had, I don't know. Let's see. Nope, it's still the same one. Never mind. Yeah, it's not updated. Hopefully we'll get in a couple of months the more updated one. There are just previous ones that we can look at. Someone asked. Okay. All right. See some other countries that we can look at. All right. All right. There are some other countries I want to kind of look at the numbers too. Sudan, that's really low. 319. Let's see what other countries there are. Uganda. Uganda, where are we? What was the number? 1,750. Okay. So pretty high up there. Okay. Ghana. Someone asked about Ghana. What is the acceptance rate? Where are you? Oh, 763. The referral from that period was 2,338, but so far 763 have been approved between that time period. All right. Neither is Haiti, but you mean well, we know. What about Nigeria? I think I mentioned Nigeria. Nigeria was Haiti was 2,541. Acceptance rate between that period, Nigeria, give me 1 second. I mentioned it, was 2,504. And 5,204 people were referred to the IRB. Okay, the actual hearing. The actual hearing, that's a really good question. It really depends, right? So if you have, what the Immigration Refugee Board or Refugee Protection Division does is they examine your application when it first comes into your hand. If they find that it's a straightforward type of application, you could possibly fall under the short, less complex process, which is a short hearing or acceptance without a hearing. Now, if if you are get the file review, which is a possibly being accepted without a hearing, that's one way. But if you get short hearing, it's about 3 hours. Regular hearing could be a little bit longer. Uh, then there's all day hearings. But you guys also have to remember, country, sorry, not countries. uh, you can have multiple hearings. It's very much possible, especially for more complex cases. It's very possible that you have more than one hearing too. What's the approval rate of asylum claims now? So what do you mean? So that really depends, right? Again, what I was talking about right now is based on each country. Um, do you want to know, like, statistically how many claims are accepted, like percentage wise? What about Ethiopia? I think I mentioned Ethiopia, but I'm gonna bring it up. Give me 2 seconds. 1,162 for that time period. And then Palestine actually had a very low percentage of acceptance, even referral. Palestine, 512 were referred, 119 were accepted. Can I add my wife in my pending refugee case application now? What do you mean add to them? Like, are they in the country and are they also a refugee claimant? Would you consider coming into the country December? Would you consider coming into the country December 2024 and your hearing is in March 2026 fast track? Sorry, I'm not understanding your question, Brittany. Okay. Study permits for refugee claimants. Do they need to show proof of funds? Yes, I believe you do. I don't believe you are exempted from the proof of funds. Again, guys, I do want to preface though and say this, that anything I say here is not meant to be legal advice. If you are looking to get study permit or anything else, even if you're a refugee claimant, please make sure you get legal advice. It's really, really important. Okay, Zimbabwe. I got a few questions here. Zimbabwe, Nepal. Zimbabwe, Nepal. Zimbabwe. 213 were accepted. And then Nepal, where are we? Nepal, where are you? 536 were accepted between that period. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just sorry guys, I have to go back and up and down to some questions here. So, would you consider coming into the country December 24th and your hearing was fast track? Mm, it's still around that same process in time, 2.5 years kind of thing, to be honest. Or a year and a half, I guess, really, realistically. Depends when you submit your application too. What is the acceptance rate of Nepal? So Nepal, 536 between January to September were accepted, and 1,130 of them were referred to the Refugee Protection Division. Yeah, sometimes it is shorter. Okay, so yes, you sometimes do have shorter hearings. So, for example, less complex cases. But again, that really depends on your case as well. And keep in mind, I've seen in certain situations where they actually made the hearing a little bit longer too. So keep that in mind as well. What do you think about Bangladesh Hindu minority? So what do you mean, Pony? Like, what do I think about it? Haiti. Okay. A couple of these guys I've already mentioned, but no problem. I will find it for you. Where are we? Oh, wow. No, sorry, it's not for Haiti. For Haiti, it's 2,541. Um, I said wow because India specifically had a high amount of referrals, but only 1,568 were approved. Do you still advise people to apply for asylum before Bill C-12 becomes official if over here every year? Listen, I determine if someone is eligible and if seeking safety in Canada, the only choice is, maintain their, like, basically keep themselves safe. So if that's the case, yes, I would say apply. Oh, ew. Okay. Sorry, guys. My phone is heating up, and my phone just gave me a warning. If it is the only way that you can seek safety, yes, I would say. You should apply, and you've been here for over a year, you should apply beforehand. There are other mechanisms, for seeking safety, like PRA, even if it comes into effect. But again, PRA is just, um, but I always say, if you are a refugee claimant, guys, remember severe consequences. If you applied for refugee and you're not approved, or you're considered abandoned or anything like that. So please remember that end of the day. But if you absolutely think asylum is the only way so you can seek safety, then yes, I would say apply before it goes into effect, because then you will not be eligible. I am a protected refugee in Canada. Can I travel to the US with US spousals visa? That is a question for the US, not for me. What do you think about Bangladesh Hindu minority acceptance rate? So they're not really specific on what type of groups, like what type of case it is, right? This is just the overall country like acceptance rate. I'm going to bring up Bangladesh. 934 cases were accepted between that period, and then 3,261 were referred. So it could be due to minority. It could be for a lot of different reasons that people were accepted. Again, this is very determinant on your situation and your specific reasons for seeking safety. Hello, ma'am. Can I come as a visitor to watch the World Cup and then submit myself as a refugee? Jazzy, I am not going to give legal advice on that. Unfortunately, we cannot encourage, as legal professionals, licensed legal professionals, we cannot encourage anyone to seek asylum in Canada. So I will not comment on that. Hi, Tremor. Kenya. All right, Calvin. I've mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Sorry, my phone is slipping. Kenya, where are you? Okay. $1,113 accepted. All right. Now, guys, I want to go through some important things as well when it comes to refugee claim. Sorry, Bill C-12. Some important things you have to remember. Physical presence in Canada with Bill C-12 is becoming absolutely mandatory. If a claimant or appellant is not physically in Canada, the claim or appeal is suspended. If they voluntarily return to the country they fled, the claim/appeal is abandoned automatically. Applies to both Refugee Protection Division and Refugee Appeal Division. So keep that in mind. If you are a refugee claimant, you cannot be traveling outside if Bill C-12 comes into effect. But again, if you have questions about that, speak to your counsel. If it's like some sort of circumstances or whatever, speak to your legal professional or get a consultation. Removal orders is something I mentioned before, guys, that are going to be a lot faster and clearer. So if you don't do certain things or cases considered abandoned, they will move you really, really fast. Okay, so for example, removal orders now come into force based on appeal rights and deadlines, claimant ineligibility, rejection, abandonment, or withdrawal. Refugee claimants have specific countdown deadlines, so 7 to 15 days in most cases. And the minister, this is really important too, the minister must publish monthly public reports on removals, including countries of origin, age and gender, criminal background, and reasons for delays. So what this is saying to us is that they're making removal a priority. What does that mean for you? That means you better make sure your case is very, very strong. And I don't mean to say this in a harsh tone, guys, but like I say, a refugee claim is a very complex type of application. With Bill C-12 passing, it will even become more complicated. So you really need to consider. Sorry, guys, I'm. Oh, you really need to consider. Um, my apologies. Um, okay. You really need to consider that your application must be very, very strong in order for you to not fall into this Bill C-12 kind of situation. Okay. My background check done last year. I also got disclosure report too, but still no hearing. Yeah. So right now, like I mentioned, the hearing dates are very, very high. Um, when is it effective, Bill C-12? Sorry, I got a little distracted, guys. When is it effective? Bill C-12. Bill C-12 comes into effect estimation, because we're not really sure right now how the readings will go at the Senate, but we're assuming it will come into effect, if it comes into effect, around springtime. Is it easier to get your refugee claim if you come from Jamaica? No. Okay, guys, so it doesn't really matter. Again, you got I mean, sometimes it matters because, country conditions are important, but you gotta stop thinking about, oh, if I come from this place, I'm gonna get my refugee claim approved. No, that's not the case. It very much depends on your situation, your credibility, why you're seeking protection. I wish you guys would stop focusing on the country, even though that is an important element, and more specifically on your situation and why you cannot return to that country, right? Um, is continuing to study university while seeking asylum is that possible? Sorry. Okay, hold on, guys. Continues to. Okay, yes, it's possible. You just need to obtain a study permit. Uh, Still waiting for a hearing date, but I'm in a skilled trade. Can it help my case? No, your profession is not really a determinant of the situation. I've never been in a hearing where they ask the person's profession and determine their acceptance on that. Uh, Guys, remember there are certain elements that are really important in cases and in hearings. Really, like volunteering and working, though those are good, and it shows that you are, like you're assimilating into Canada. They're not determinative factors. This is not an agency application where they're looking at how you're assimilating into Canada. They're looking at why you're fearful to return to your country. No, no, you cannot. Uh, you cannot return to your country after you become a Canadian citizenship, even though having your citizenship revoked um, is very much possible, but it's hard. There are grounds that someone can, if they found out misrepresentation or fraud, they can have their citizenship revoked, right? And it's a very complicated situation. Some people are like, yes, we can. Some people say, no, we can't. They can't do it that easily. But has there been grounds that people have had their citizenship revoked? Yes. Should you be doing it? No. It's a concept of reavailment. It can affect you, and I would say if you should be seeking legal advice in those type of situations. I never, and I'm not alone. I'm not the only counsel who has said this. Immigration lawyers, immigration consultants say even with citizenship, you should not be returning to your country of persecution. there was a period, the Harper administration, when they were actually looking at individuals who even had their citizenship through the refugee claim, and were looking into if they returned to that country, what have they done, and and possibly have gone through the revocation process. Oh God. Okay, hold on. Can I apply for a visiting visa for my spouse and kids? I submitted their PR application. Uh, yeah, if they're eligible and if you're eligible. Sorry, I got a question from someone on YouTube. Good morning. Can I talk? Unfortunately, I'm not bringing anyone on live to talk. If you have a question, I would encourage that you put it on in the chat box, and we can have a quick chat. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't in any other way. How long does it take to get a call for hearing after applying? Couple of years. We're looking at 2.5 years kind of thing. I'm gonna add her on a basis of like intercaste marriages and etc. Sorry, I'm not really understanding what was your question? Think I might have missed a few questions. Maybe not. Okay. Um, yes, but rules or people or the law change in that country is free. Again, in that situation, David, you really need to get a legal advice. And guys, remember, anything I say here is not meant to be legal advice at all. Please remember that. Hi, is it true it can take 8 months to get your hearing in not popular areas like Saskatoon? I have not seen that. And again, depending on how fast you get your hearing as well, depends on the situation and the person too. I've never really worked with like children that are not without their parents, but I've heard that people who are in vulnerable situations can get a little bit faster. But again, very case specific because they also have to still do your background check too. Okay, I'm gonna add her on a basis of like intercaste marriages. Sorry, Devil, I'm not really understanding your question. Hi, is it true I can oh okay, that one I asked. When will IRCC will start work on agri-food pilot program files? Good question. I've never really done the application to really know, so I'm not really sure. I do apologize. Hi, I have a question regarding CEC draw. Do you think the score may go down to 507 or 506? Hassan, it's it's very possible, and I know this is not centered around Bill C-12. It is very much possible. I say never, because we've seen them last little while keep going down and down and down. But I think there's going to be a certain point that they're not going to go so down anymore. 506 or 507 might be possible. Will it go into the 400s? I personally don't think so. But, they might not meet their targets, or they find that a lot of people are not like when they send out invitations, people are not successful in applying, that they do lower it. So we don't know. It's possible. 506 or 507, I would say so. It's a very much a possibility, but I'm not IRCC to tell you definitively. How do they do your background check? So there's the background check, and then there's individuals who also they might do further background checks. I'm not sure exactly who. I'm assuming it's CBSA and IRCC who are doing the background check. But in certain cases, CSIS gets involved and they do a background check as well. So that is our intelligence office, and they do that, and they've done that recently because of certain cases and certain things that have happened. They've gotten involved too. All right, I'm just looking over here, seeing what's happening. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's just a few other stuff, guys, I really want to go over. Uh, so the Refugee Appeal Division if you are someone who your refugee protection division claim was not successful, your appeal can be canceled after Bill C-12 if you leave Canada. Appeals are abandoned or suspended if the claimant leaves Canada. So remember that element. They're being very strict. Efficiency and control. Chairperson gains more authority on how decisions are written and reduce delays. And written reasons might be only given in requests or specific cases. And the Refugee Protection Division can accept claims without hearing if the minister does not intervene. So those are some changes that are coming. So physical presence in Canada, like I mentioned, is mandatory if you're a refugee claimant. Your case will get suspended or abandoned if you go to the country of persecution. I think those are like some of the ones I've recently noticed. I do apologize. I don't know what pilot program you're talking about, but unfortunately, no, I'm not very case specific with those to know too much about it. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it here because it's been an hour. Generally, my lives are an hour. I'm going to leave it here. I just want you guys to all be very aware of Bill C-12, especially if you do need to seek asylum in Canada. Please remember, it's coming very, very soon. Most likely, I think it's very most likely. Not definitive, but most likely. And if you guys are seeking for any representation or anything like that, or file review, I offer those services. My prices are not overly high. I try to keep them as down as possible to be able to help as many people as possible. If you're looking for a consultation or you need representation, I highly recommend that. If, not just with me, just with anyone who is trained, because the refugee claim process is getting harder and is, it's a type of case that has very strict, very concerning consequences. So if you can do that, I also offer payment plans. I don't think I really advertise that, but I do. I offer payment plans for my clients, so you don't have to give a lump sum right away. And yeah, and consultations are there. You can book it if it's an emergency. You can book that as well. I offer other services like removal orders, removal order appeals, inadmissibility, because sometimes those go hand in hand, refugee claims, things like that. So make sure you check out my link to book a consultation, and we'll take it from there. Bye, guys, for now, and I will see you guys later. Have a great evening.